All right, welcome to Eric Tries Too Hard Fantasy Football Edition. For anybody who remembers from, I guess, around the time of the Super Bowl, I did an interview with SB Nation writer Dan Shiraki, and we talked about music, we talked about all sorts of stuff, but we mainly focused on his fantasy football writing career. He also won the best new writer at the Fantasy Sports Writers Association and that's him. No, in Vegas. That's my baby. Anyway, so ever since then, we decided we were going to start doing weekly. Oh my God! Hi, sweetie. We're going to do weekly fantasy football podcasts when the season started. He and I are also in some leagues together. He got me into fantasy football, and I beat him in both leagues last year. Yeah. So anyway, I've been doing a lot of obsessive mock drafting over the past, I guess, since I couldn't do daily fantasy anymore. And I think I've learned a lot about, I know a decent amount of fantasy football knowledge at this point, and I'm definitely up to date this year. But people are complaining about they didn't like the sounds in the ESPN fantasy football drafts. I love them. I don't care. I'm such a nerd. But yeah, so unfortunately, Dan is not in this mock draft with me, but I definitely want to do a few of these just to kind of get a decent idea of draft position. So like I said, I'm relatively up to date on football knowledge, but I'm not like all these experts, especially with like Dan himself included, with just the insane amount of stats, knowledge, along with knowledge of every possible position and change in. Jeez, I don't even know enough to say how much I don't know. Anyway, I know a lot of fantasy football strategy, though, which is kind of what I'll be bringing to the podcast. But anyway, I wanted to do a couple of introductory drafts to put on YouTube and upload the audio for the general Eric Tries Too Hard podcast. So if you're new to this through fantasy football, welcome. Hopefully you like this. All right, so I'm pick 4. I wanted to try... all right, let's see. Well, you can see the screen, so that's helpful. I'll explain. Oh, God, this is so stupid. Why? Who picked this Bryant third? I play primarily in PPR leagues, but this is not a PPR mock draft. Oh, this is rough. Okay, so let me just try to make up for some lost time here while I was doing that intro. So I'm trying to do 3 different drafts. So I might do more, but I'm going to do 3 by myself. 1 in the first 4 picks, 1 in the middle picks, and 1 in the late picks to see how that... Because if you're using a tiered system like I do, you end up having... kind of the same choices relatively, but I wanted to see and analyze it from each of those spaces, because I feel like that those 3, if you chop the draft into those 3 sections, that's kind of where different tier drop-offs happen at different times. So first round, first person picked Jamal Charles, second picked Eddie Lacy, third picked Dez Bryant. So I had the option of Adrian Peterson, Marshawn Lynch, or Le'Veon Bell, which are the 3 that I would take right then. I really like Le'Veon Bell. I like Peterson a lot. Yeah, he burned me last year, but I was about to say it wasn't his fault. It was entirely his fault, but it wasn't my fault that it wasn't his football playing ability's fault that made that pick a burn last year. So I'd still take him. I'd take him or Bell, and then shortly after, if neither one of them were available, I would take, like, if I had the 5th pick, I would have taken Marshawn Lynch. The middle rounds, I have more difficulty making those picks. But yeah, I really do. My tiers are, it's just, for me, it's Lacy or Charles, and then Peterson, Bell, and then Lynch, and then other. And then possibly look at Antonio Brown or... I know C.J. Anderson's getting picked up there, but man, or sometimes people are picking him in the top 5. Man, I don't know, the amount of, I guess, the reliability, the history isn't there, unlike the other players. And... Anyway, I don't know why I need to analyze it that deep. Anybody who's already watching this has already been analyzing the picks themselves. That's not where I'm particularly interested in, is the picks themselves. I'm more interested in the values you can get in various draft spots. I know, you wanted Bell, but I didn't take Bell. Because we're from Baltimore. Okay? She's 3.5 months old. She doesn't know... Like, she only knows, like, 80% of the fantasy football stuff that I know. So she goes with her heart. God bless her. All right, so let's see what everybody else is picking. Um, so after Adrian Peterson, somebody grabbed Arian Foster. Great when he's playing. That's awesome. Kind of hurts that he does not give a shit about letting his fantasy owners know anything. I mean, the nerve. Marshawn Lynch, Antonio Brown, everything's... Le'Veon Bell went in the ninth. Went ninth, that's nuts. Sean McCoy. It's all pretty standard for what I've been seeing in my mock drafts. All right. Everybody's turned it off already. Oh my god. It's like 10 people were going to listen to that. All right. Take a seat. Okay. All right. So let's see who's been taken next. Yeah, everything's pretty standard first round of how things have been going. The back end of the first round and the start of the next round are grabbing those, last handful of questionable running backs. Of if all goes well, then they'll be amazing and complete steals, but they have higher risk. It's like the ceiling is just as good from all of those first, 8 or 9 running backs, but the floor is the risk and floor is quite different from back to back. All right, so now here comes the stream of viable wide receivers that we're seeing go in the beginning of the second round. So I like the 4th pick a lot because you can actually, if 1 or 2 people make a couple of mistakes, or whoa, she's not even mad. She's just a big smile. Oh my god! So after people playing fantasy football, I just want to watch a stupid podcast and get away from my screaming kids for 2 seconds. Hey, I let you stay home from school. You did not have daycare today because Daddy said you'd be cool. Daddy vouched for you. She can't hang, is what it is. She just can't hang. I know, you want your nap. All right, so there goes the first quarterback off the board with Andrew Luck. See, Calvin Johnson, sometimes if people mess up enough, you can get Calvin Johnson come back around in the second round as long as your pick is 4th. I'm starting to think maybe with these running backs, you could just, especially if somebody's wanting to take a wide receiver in the first 5 picks, you could go pick 5 and get a great player on the backswing. All right, so look, I've got a choice of Aaron Rodgers, of... It's going to work? All right, Aaron Rodgers, Gronk, and then usually I have Cobb, maybe T.Y. Hilton or Jerry. I think I'm just going to take Gronk here. All right, this is weird. This is definitely unprecedented. I have never played... I've never had a mock draft where Gronk comes back to me in the second round at 4. Now, pretty much every single draft that I have done, and if I take Gronk in the first round, I'm extremely unhappy with my team. But this is weird because I've never had the opportunity to take him in the second round. Honestly, even if I'm like 11th or 12th, I don't know... I don't see him going past like 13th in any draft. I don't think I've ever gotten him past the first round. Well, that's kind of crazy. All right. Now I'm standing because that means she won't make noise. All right. Sorry about that. So if you're hearing it from here on out and you're like, man, I think I'm about to turn it off because there's a screaming baby, I don't think that's going to be a problem anymore. All right, so who got taken? Who got taken? Jeremy Hill, of course. Aaron Rodgers, of course. Hilton, Alfred Morris. All right. Okay, so all right. So look at round 3. This is going to be weird because usually I've got another tier 1 player, in a wide receiver or running back position. But yeah, the standard 3rd round people are here: Mike Evans, Emmanuel Sanders, Lamar Miller. I think I want Lamar Miller. I could take most of these players I would totally take just fine. I think I want Lamar Miller, though. Mike Evans is I know he's not a question mark, but he's still, to me, kind of a question mark. Sanders is... fine, Lamar Miller. Mark Ingram, the whole C.J. Spiller, Mark Ingram thing weirds me out a little bit. I know some people are like, no, it's going to be Spiller, and PPR, he's only going to have decent flex value in PPR, whatever, and then... Ingram had such a good end of his year, he'll totally just still be the 3 down. I don't know. I would rather have Lamar Miller. And Mike Evans, I know Mike Evans and Emmanuel. See, this is... I hope I hope all of you talk to yourselves the same way that I do when I'm doing these drafts. Because I'd love to be more articulate and definitive with these picks, but sometimes that's just not what happens. And there's 17 different reasons why you should or shouldn't draft just with any of them, but Lamar Miller is the one that I like the most, maybe Frank Gore. But yeah, Lamar Miller, then Jimmy Graham gets picked, then Frank Gore. And I kind of like when that happens where I'm torn between a player and a couple of other players who I think probably have higher ceilings, bigger risk, and I take you want as sure thing as you can get, which doesn't exist, and then none of the players that I was potentially going to take go immediately after. Like there's Justin Forsett, and then Mark Ingram. So everyone keeps talking. Here's another thing I've noticed. Everyone keeps saying that round 4 is where you grab your second running back. But if you're looking at this, and I think this is actually a good cross-section of how most drafts have been going, there are a good chunk of running backs going in round 3. A lot of the quarterbacks people expect to take in round 4 are gone in round 3. All right, and there's Russell Wilson. So that's interesting. Towards the end of the 3rd round, Russell Wilson goes off the board. So that's interesting. I know. Well, that means you could probably snag like Peyton Manning around 5, if that's what we're looking at. Unless a couple of people get trigger happy where they're just like, need to pull a quarterback. And then again, it's 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon, so I'm going to guess, and only, what is it? I guess 2 people are already on autodraft. That's annoying. I hate when that happens. But I would imagine some amount of the people drafting are, they're that. Now, I imagine that they probably spend a lot of time on fantasy football if they're drafting at this time. But they're like me, and you just happen to be off on a Monday. One thing one thing I want to do, there goes Emmanuel Sanders and Mike Evans, about 10 picks after I was considering taking them. Now, again, that's not necessarily a particularly good sign that, like, oh, I was totally right, because who the hell knows, but I also think taking a running back there is probably pretty good. We'll see what ends up happening. I'll show you as the draft goes on. There are a couple of like short-term or sleeper running backs that I think you can get pretty late. All right, who's up? I liked Matthews and Cooks. If I could have snagged them here, yeah, that'd been fantastic. All right, what are we looking at? Bill St. Wilkins. I don't like any of them. Yeah, these are a lot of people I just do not like right now. Honestly, Amari Cooper is probably the closest thing that I like. I don't really like Joey Bill. I don't really like Latavius Murray. Yeah, Amari Cooper it is. Oh, by the way, here's a draft tip. If you're comfortable using like crappier programs, definitely use like Fox Sports or whatever, because their projections are all off. And if you have people who base their picks on any form of projections from the site, you could just run away with the whole thing. I guess I could have taken Joseph Randall, but at this point, or TJ Yeldon. But to be honest, I still don't like I don't want a piece of the Jaguars offense, and that's coming from someone who just took a piece of the Raiders offense. But I think running back is a little bit different than wide receiver when it comes to crappy offenses. Let's see who else we're looking at. Yeah, Keenan Allen, I know people are all of a sudden starting to look at Keenan Allen as a viable player again. I don't know. At risk of, sounding like a cliche, got burned by him last year. I don't know. See, these middle rounds is where I definitely kind of get, like, I like a few players, and those are the ones I'm taking, whether I have to reach for them or they fall to me. I find myself the same, like, if there's, like, if we're talking about 4 different rounds, there's probably 12 players I end up with. Some combination of those 12 in those 4 rounds. All right, who are we looking at? See, and Drew Brees is still available, and now it is the 5th round. Is Peyton Manning still available? I didn't even look. Whatever. If Peyton Manning's available, this is about when I'd take him. Let's see if I can do this quickly. Nope. But I know on some, Big Ben is going before Peyton. Still Latavius Murray's still there. Todd Gurley's here. Yeah, I know. Todd Gurley it is. Alright. Yeah, Trey Mason is someone I like grabbing later in the draft because then you're just like, oh sweet, or D'Angelo Williams. I almost said D'Angelo Barksdale because I've just been watching The Wire nonstop. It's her favorite show. Who's your favorite character? Is it Omar? Of course it's Omar. It's always Omar. Yeah, see, and right here is about where it becomes personal preference, I think, in these middle rounds. So this might be a good time for me to explain why pick 4 is a pick that I really, really like. It's because you can get one of what I think is the top 5 running backs, especially top 4, because I think that tier-wise they get divided into 2, 2, 1, and then like 6 as far as numbers of running backs in each tier. So once you have those that first pick, you can still get that great running back. On the way back, you can wind up typically with one of the 2 top quarterbacks, which I like taking QB and tight end very late. Very late. Sometimes I like doing drafts where I just don't take one or the other or both at all until like the 3rd to last and 4th to last round, and just to see what the landscape looks like. And oftentimes, I'll be like, this actually isn't that bad. Yeah, so I like that. So on the swing back, you can usually get potentially like an Aaron Rodgers or a Randall Cobb or I don't know, whoever. Those are the or T.Y. Hilton. But in the case of this draft, as we saw, it's not likely that it's going to happen. But like I had mentioned, let's say 1 or 2 people, in my opinion, mess up, for lack of a better term. Say they mess up, and Rob Gronkowski falls to you in the 2nd round. Like, it's possible that a couple people messing up, like someone like Calvin Johnson, can possibly fall to you, or Rob Gronkowski. It's probably not going to happen, but unlike the first 3 picks, with that 4th pick, you at least open the doors for something like that to happen. So let's say I had 5th pick in this draft, because someone took Dez as the 3rd pick, I could have still gotten like Le'Veon Bell or Adrian Peterson pick 5, and then I would have an extra. But here's why. I know everyone's also saying like, oh, if your running back works out, that you grab in the end of the 1st round, or you get 2 great wide receivers on the 1st and 2nd round turn. Having a late round pick is amazing because your 2nd round pick is so much better, and that's absolutely accurate. This draft, I don't think that's necessarily true because Gronk fell to me in the 2nd. That's so stupid. But yeah, and that's true. But I think the other round turns end up making the difference. So, like, let's say in that 3rd round, when I was debating between a couple of players, I ended up picking Lamar Miller. But reasonably, there were only 2 or 3 other players that I wanted to have. And had I been picking in the middle or late rounds, they would be gone. And that drop off from it's the end. The drop off after about 4 to 6 picks into 4 to 5 picks in round 3 typically is major. So your round, you may have, if you're in the end of the draft, your round 2 pick may have been a tier above someone else's round 2 pick if they had an early pick in the draft. But that round 3, they're going to make up, half to 2/3 of the value probably on their 3rd round pick. So you still have a slight advantage on your 2nd round pick, but their 1st round pick may also have additional advantage. So they're already back ahead of you, even though you got all that advantage in your 2nd round pick. I hope that was clear. The 4th round pick. I should have done this as it was happening. Let me do it in my head. Okay. So on your 4th round pick, a later round pick, had I guess 3 picks before mine. Again, I'm picking 4th. So had I had a 7th picker later, I would have been able to take Brandon Cooks or Jordan Matthews, both of which I really like. So yeah, I lost a little bit of on wide receiver there, but I still grabbed Amari Cooper, and I think that definitely limits the ceiling, obviously, but I think I was still able to take a, God, I don't want to call him wide receiver 1. I got a potential wide receiver 1.5. All right, so we're in these middle rounds, and it really is just a lot of conjecture right there. And then, round 5, I grabbed Todd Gurley. So potentially another fantastic running back that I can play at running back or flex once he starts. And I'm willing to sacrifice that pick because there are other people around who I wouldn't necessarily be too eager to start, or any more eager to start them than any of the people I could get in this next round. And you really are playing for a full year. You're not playing for the best week 1 lineup. You're playing for the full year, blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows that. So what did I take? I like Kevin White, but if this person times out, they're taking him. I don't really like the Browns' backfield because then I got to invest 2 picks. I do not like Macklin as much. I'd grab Travis Kelce and just be like, sweet, domino. But because I have Gronk, I don't know. What round is this? 6? That's good value in the 6th, from what I can remember. I could see his thing. I'd want to take Roethlisberger, but no. All right, I just want to improve my wide receiver depth. All right, so Jarvis Landry. All right, so here's what we're looking at. I could have taken Big Ben, and I'm pretty happy there. I don't want to take Allen Robinson because Jaguars, and I know they're going to get better, but I'd rather miss out on that this year than whiff on it this year, if you know what I mean. As far as the likelihood of the success, I'd rather just be like, you know what? I'd rather not take the risk that things will change. I'd rather take the risk that things will stay the same, if you know what I mean. I also like Tannehill a lot this year. Kelce I would take, but again, because I only need to play the 1 tight end, I don't know if it's really worth it over, wide receiver, a position I can play up to 3 of. I'd rather get a good wide receiver. And so now I really just need a starting flex, and I'm feeling pretty good. Plus, okay, with quarterback, with Big Ben, I mean, yeah, I'm sure he's going to have an amazing year. But the extent that that's going to be that much more amazing on a week-to-week basis than whoever I pick 5 rounds later isn't going to be that much of a difference, I don't think. All right, tight end rush. Allen Robinson is still available, and it's the 7th round. I was liking taking him so much later in previous drafts, but now people like him. Aguilar, I also like the idea of having Aguilar. Although I'd rather take Allen Robinson as someone who's a potential starter as opposed to waiting for someone to get injured. However, because I'm not going to have a pick for a while, and I have Todd Gurley, I might as well grab Trey Mason so I can secure having a starting running back. And again, this is, if you're watching this later on down the line, right now this is before any preseason games. So again, I'm still have to, keep this somewhat interesting so you're not just like looking at a screen and just watching people draft in silence or a baby screaming. Then you'll, so I'm justifying the picks for that reason, but also, fuck me. I forgot to look into Martavis Bryant. I guess in that moment for this particular draft, if I didn't have Gurley, I wouldn't take... You know what? That's true. If I didn't have Gurley, I wouldn't take Trey Mason. I would have grabbed Martavis Bryant and hope for the best. I really like him a lot. But in this particular situation, that's what I wanted to do. So anyway, that's kind of how... so I'm talking, even though there's going to be a lot of changes, or not a lot, but some changes over the next, I guess, however long, month and a half before the season starts. There goes D'Angelo Williams in the, 8th pick? Jesus, in the 8th. I guess isn't that around where he's going? Yeah. Hey, Trey Mason accomplishes my D'Angelo Williams pick. And since I already have Todd Gurley, that makes perfect sense to me. I do like having not Bell and not Gurley and taking D'Angelo Williams or Trey Mason. I think that's awesome. Because you're getting, that's a I don't know. I was trying to do a metaphor in how that's a lot better than a lottery ticket. I don't know. Who cares? First couple weeks, you know it's going to be. They're going to play. Yeah, but anyway, I'm mostly for this, since there's so much that's going to change. Mostly just looking into seeing how, what players are available at what rounds. And to be honest, there's a million people who should be doing this that are much better than me, but they're not, so here I am. Alright, I like Abdullah as a sleeper. I like Doug Martin as a great lottery ticket. Roddy White as a potential lottery ticket. Duke Johnson, also like as the potential to just burst out. Charles Johnson, I really should. See, I'm looking around 9, and I actually have a lot of people I like here. That said, I think Abdullah is the one that I want. Yeah. Charles Johnson, great. I could have taken Charles Johnson just to have another, what, how many? Yeah. I have 2 wide receiver 2s, one with the potential to go 1 or 1.5, so still fine. I potentially have, I don't really like to think about trades as far as when judging how much I like my team. Well, but, I mean, there's a point where if things go well for me, I'll have an extra extremely good running back that I can maybe ship with a wide receiver 2 for a wide receiver 1. Alright, who we got? There's Charles Johnson. Thank you. I like you a lot. I'm glad you're still there. Charles Johnson. And then Duke Johnson. No, Charles Johnson. I actually think he could be a wide receiver 2. And see, though, I try to kind of, I don't know. I try to, like, lead my, I guess I could have taken Tony Romo instead of Abdul. No. See, the quarterback thing, then I start getting, like, oh my god, okay, I need a quarterback. It's very rare that I'd end up in a situation where, hey, I'm just recording. Yeah, she's falling asleep. Oh, look at her, she says hi. Yeah. Probably not. You can come down and hang out. How long do you want to be down here? You come down for a couple minutes? This is almost over.
Is this like a real thing?
Yeah.
Are you gonna edit it?
I was hoping I wouldn't have to.
Please edit it?
Yeah, I'll edit it. Alright, let's see. So the, no, you can come in. But I will be talking fantasy to myself a couple of times. I mean, if you really want to spend some time with her, I think her diaper's full.
Okay.
Even though she's asleep. Hi, Callie. It's the whole party. Alright, so I think now I need to get a quarterback. Let's see. That's okay. At this point, I was just saying nonsense to myself to try to fill space, because after, like, 10 rounds, you're kind of like...
Is it still recording?
Oh, yeah, of course it is. Well, it still like a scream-voice combo. Hey, she was screaming throughout all of it. I'll probably have to throw the whole thing away.
They were happy screams, though, right?
I know, they were so happy. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see anybody here right now that I desperately want to take for value over a quarterback, which is a position I still need. Let's see who's still available after not looking at quarterback for 10 rounds. So Manning, Stafford. See, the thing is, I even like Bradford and Palmer and Bridgewater, potentially Cutler, probably not Cutler. Like that's how. Yeah, wife's a Bears fan. Yeah, I'll totally take Eli Manning right here. And I could probably wait a little bit longer, but because there's nobody else I'm just dying to get in that spot, then I might as well take him and not risk, 5 people wanting to take backup quarterbacks. I really have no problem, absolutely no problem taking Eli Manning there, especially when I can just start streaming. Your chips, sweetie, you woke up? I do the same thing.
You can probably put her on the bed in the middle as long as you go.
Okay, so now that most of these people are on auto draft, which is great, well, not great, it's awful, but that's kind of how most people draft towards the end anyway. So, Steve Smith Sr., I don't think... Okay, so here's something. I'll take Jordan Cameron. So here's something interesting. is that Steve Smith Sr. Is in a position where I've seen a lot of people, and I've taken a lot of people, whether it's in a draft or off the waiver wire, where they're in a position where they're like, oh, well, they're going to have a decent stat line. They're gonna do pretty well, have some good games. They're going to consistently put up X amount of points. But the truth is, they're always consistently putting up points that are just below the threshold of where I'd want to start somebody. So I never end up starting them. And yeah, sure, they'll have a couple big weeks. Brandon LaFell was a good example of this last year. That I picked him up and kept him on my roster the whole year, and never ended up playing him. I think I did once when a couple people got injured or just like a real big bye week. But I would, in a draft when all your players are healthy, says the guy who took Todd Gurley when the draft. What, you want to make fun of me?
She fell asleep to this.
She fell asleep because I was doing this. Yeah.
She's screaming.
This is so boring. Anyway, if you're not going to start somebody, don't take them. Don't have them on your team. Again, unless somebody, you got a hell bye week coming up, or you got some injuries and that's your best option, of course you take them. But taking somebody just because they're consistently not terrible, like, if you're not going to start them, don't take them. And Steve Smith Sr. is one of those. And I know I hate taking 2 tight ends, but if all the players there, I think I liked Jordan Cameron. Also, I'm not going to lie, whatever, round 11, a little distracted by all the stuff that was happening. Well, at least you took the baby. That's pretty nice. Which is funny. I would have probably taken Perryman at some point. Who do I still want? I know I have a list of like 5 or 6 guys who aren't going until, the very, very end. So I don't know if... I'm sure there's a couple of places where I'm losing value towards the end. Like, maybe I didn't need to take Jordan Cameron there. I probably could have taken, a higher upside lottery ticket at running back or wide receiver. But who knows? I only have 3 wide receivers. See, I have 5 running backs. I'm very happy about that. And for a team that has Rob Gronkowski, this is not even this is the strongest team I've ever had or seen with Rob Gronkowski, and it's not even close. And that's because somebody along the way messed up pretty bad. At the end of this draft, I'm going to look back in and see what that was, or at least I'm not going to bother taking a defense or a kicker. I'll let myself time out. Everybody else seems to have done that after round 9 or whatever. But yeah, so there's a handful of... All right, so let's go through. Bolden might be worth taking as a flyer, I guess. For blue, Darrell Green Beckham. It's the Titans. I don't even want to touch. That's an offense I don't want to touch. Terrence Williams is a possibility. Oh, man. Okay. I'll take Darrell Green Beckham. Right? Yeah. Just that's a flyer if I ever seen one. What else do I want? How many more? I have 2 more bench spots. And Cameron Artis-Payne, if that's the dude who's expected to take over if Jonathan Stewart gets injured, that's not bad at all. Yeah, and Terrence Williams is another one where, because I gotta say, unless things change drastically for the Cowboys offense with switching, after trading away Murray, then I don't know. Unless it changes very drastically, I think Terrence Williams is going to be one of those players where it's just the guy who, I don't know, it's like the guy who, just like Steve Smith Sr. or Torrey Smith last year was a good example as well. Just the guy who consistently puts up numbers where you can grab him in a bye week, but he should just be on the waiver wire for you whenever you're ready. And then the other flyer I like to take is Marvin Jones. Did really well last year, and then got injured, replaced by Sanu, and Sanu started doing really well at various times, depending on, what A.J. Green was up to usually, but But if Marvin Jones comes back, I think it's worth it if he ends up being the number 2 wide receiver. It's definitely worth taking as a late round flyer. Who cares? I don't really see anybody else here other than, like, what am I going to do? Take one of the other quarterbacks? I don't think a quarterback has been taken since I took mine. When I took Manning. Then again, if a bunch of people just like, a lot of people let their time expire at that point. So it's hard to tell. Those quarterbacks that looks like, oh great, I could just grab any of those off the waiver wire at any point, that probably won't necessarily be there. Even though I think they should. I don't know why people, like, when you look at the numbers, taking a backup quarterback, unless you really, unless you're like, I think there are 2 quarterbacks that are both coin flips. One is going to be a top 6 quarterback. Then yeah, take them both if you can, if you got good value off of it. Because then you're like, well, if one of them hits, then I just struck gold and got insane value. But if you're like, well, all these players are probably going to be like between the 6th and 12th best quarterback, and I can grab them way later down the line, then do it. Because, QB6 is not that much different than QB5, but QB5 is going in round 4, and QB6 is going around like 8, and then QBs 7 and on end up going even later. It's, well, maybe. Or maybe I just said the wrong stat. I think it's something along the lines of like QBs 13 through 16 are barely worse than QBs 8 through 12 or something along those lines. Oh, did somebody take Marvin Jones? Son of a bitch. Somebody who's still paying attention. See, and that'll happen. That's why you want your backup flyers. And I was not prepared for that. So I'll probably take Terrence Williams here, just because I'll run out of time before I think about who else I want. I see enough quarterbacks here that'll be on the waiver wire, potentially, that I won't really worry about it. I know Tyler Lockett. It's another one, but I also just got Jimmy Graham. So I don't know how much that's going to shake things up. I don't know. Yeah, I'm fine taking Terrence Williams. Alright, so let's look up and see why I got Gronk. Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy, Dez Bryant. Yeah, Dez Bryant, but he still would barely go behind Gronk. I don't care, I'll take Dan Bailey. Alright, Jamal Charles, Eddie Lacy. Like, let's put Dez Bryant at the beginning of the 2nd round or the end of the 1st round. So he'd still go after Gronk, but he wouldn't come back either to round 4 pick, whatever it is, 9. And Pearson and Foster, none of these seem weird. Demaryius Thomas, Le'Veon Bell, Sean McCoy, C.J. Anderson. I'm not seeing any. What is sticking out at me that should have Alshon Jeffrey, Andrew Luck, those 2. So I think Gronk should have gone probably a lot sooner than some of these wide receivers. But yeah, Andrew Luck, Alshon Jeffrey, definitely Alshon Jeffrey, potentially Nelson Green, Julio. Man. Yeah, just 2 people mess up. If you're in round 4 and 2 people mess up, you went with someone like potentially Gronk, or if the person who took Calvin had taken Gronk, I ended up with Calvin Johnson, and that's the end. Yeah, I really like 4th pick in the draft this year for a number of reasons. And then let's go into my next pick, which would have been, what was I, Lamar Miller. And say somebody else messes up. In the meantime, I get T.Y. Hilton, which I think is a huge upgrade. And just below, you get a couple other options. If you don't like Lamar Miller, there's somebody here I'm sure you would have been happy to take in round 3. And Amari Cooper, yeah, it would have been great to have one of Brandon Cooks or Jordan Matthews, or Julian Edelman, even if it was PPR, I guess, or Peyton Manning, and that may be not Peyton Manning, that's fine. But you could also take T.J. Yeldon, so I mean, or Joseph Randle if you like him. So there's still plenty of, but just a few picks later from each of those, and you get nothing. I think anyway. Yeah, so I really like for those first 5 rounds. I love the first 4 picks, specifically pick 4. And by the time you get towards the end, like you're jumping around the values all over the place. It's just who you like, really. All right, I guess I can just wrap this up. I'm going to take whatever defense is at the top. I'm not bothering with defenses and kickers until whenever. I'm probably in actual drafts. The second things are the draft's done and I have access to the waiver wire, I'm going to drop my defense and my kicker and grab. By the way, get kicker first. You don't switch them around. You stream your defenses. Get kicker first. I'm just going to probably grab 2 more flyers off the waiver wire and then decide at the last minute what I want to, what defense I want to roster, based on what's left. It's almost as if there's a certain algorithm that's going to rank the defenses that hasn't come out yet, and I'm just waiting on that. It's almost as if that's what's happening. All right. Thank you guys for watching. This is the first one of these that I've done. Sorry for any baby crying and for any wife interrupting. I'm not really sorry. I don't give a shit. That actually gave me something to talk about. I hope this was informative. I will catch you guys later.